All right. Good morning, Chebra. Okay, so great to see everyone. Hope you had a meaningful week. And I wanted to discuss in broad strokes. I think what we called this morning was, in respect for and celebration of on the sort of borders of between that transpiring like movement from Yom HaShoah to Yom HaZikaron to Yom Ha'atzmaut. And I think I entitled it Why This Year More Than Ever. I think it's really important. And obviously, the natural understanding is that we all feel it's important, and because of everything that's going on. But I wanted to understand that a little bit more, because I think the more that we understand why it's important, what the purpose of those days are, obviously, the more that they can impact us, and not only for the day, but even more so moving forward as well. So there's a principle in Jewish thought that's brought down in the Talmud that says "Eina doma ri'ia l'shmiya" or "shmiya l'ri'ia." I don't remember which order it goes, meaning that there's no comparison between hearing about something and seeing something. Right? In English, we'd almost say "seeing is believing." Right? But what it means is that you have the difference between having something which you experience because you've been somewhere and people told you about it, and then on the flip side, you have an experience that you yourself experienced. And upon reflecting as we got closer to Yom HaShoah, and as we get closer to Yom HaZikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut, that principle really resonated with me more. Meaning, up until this year, I think that obviously, I'm sure everyone here had their own way of, acknowledging those days, commemorating those days, celebrating those days. And the truth is, that doesn't mean what a person does or where a person goes. Meaning, just like they say, a person can be in a crowded place but be all alone. A person can be at a celebration or commemoration and not really present. They might be living off of what they're hearing, but it's not really internally being processed, which is, as we know, obviously the key. Of course, there's a strength in numbers and seeing large gatherings of people, but the truth is, there's also the individual experience through that. And so, like I said before, there's a principle that you can't compare things that you heard to things that you see. I'll give you an example. I don't know. Time sort of morphs. I don't think I mentioned this, but last week, I don't remember if it was last week or this week. You can correct me. But I did a lunch and learn downtown at Omer's at one of these firms for a Jewish group that was put together ever since October 7th. They were feeling sort of alone, isolated. We're creating a monthly thing with them now, and that happened to be the day where the encampment on U of T campus started. Whatever day that was, I think it was a Monday. So I'm driving back from Adelaide, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just go by there because I don't know why, but like I felt like I had to see it, and there was a different experience. Obviously, you see the videos, he was there, but when in real life there's something in front of you, you have a different appreciation. It hits you in a different way. And so coming back to these 3 days, I do believe that they're very different for each and every one of us because they touch on things which now we relate to on a different level. Not to the degree that obviously someone who's gone through any one of those. And it's interesting, I was speaking to somebody. Originally, I was going to try to put together another mission to go back to Israel, and it was going to be somebody suggested going this week. And I said, I feel very, not there's anything wrong for people that are going for Yom HaShoah and for Yom HaZikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut, but I feel like it's such a personal time for everyone in Israel who went through that. Like, me living in Canada, obviously I appreciate it as a Jew, but I feel like it wasn't my space to be there because I didn't live through it on that level that they were living through that. But we can all agree that what we've experienced over the past year has been a lot more impactful, or has made a larger impact on our psyche on how we process this. And so I'd like to just take 2 seconds to understand what I believe to be the point of each of these days. See, each of these days are obviously not just a point of commemorating them, acknowledging them. I think that there's an aspect of appreciating what it is that each one represents for the individuals who went through them. So let me explain. Meaning, right now we know that the shift in Toronto, has almost turned from the concern to Israel to the concern of anti-Semitism over here in North America and even in Toronto itself. And not that we forget what's going on in Israel, but it's sort of turned into the sense of, wait, we've never experienced this over here. Now, this is on a small, tiny level. We can't compare it to anything, Yom HaShoah related. But we start to invoke these feelings of like, oh, like I mentioned, I did this lunch and learn downtown. It was the first time when I was standing by the elevator shaft in 100 Adelaide West, where I felt like I was surrounded by a bunch of people that I don't know what they're thinking of me. I'm noticeably Jewish, so they know who I am, assuming that they know what a yarmulke and a kippah is. And for the first time, I felt less comfortable than I felt when I was downtown just doing my thing, which I've never felt before. And then I was reflecting on, oh, so I get it, but I don't get it. But I think as we went through Yom HaShoah this year, and again, there ain't no doma, we can't compare to what experience that was to what we hear. But the truth is, we started to experience small things that all of a sudden we realized, wait, things that we just took as being like, wow, obviously that was horrible. But there are things we can relate to on a different level now, which start to make us appreciate just what that means to live in a society where everything that you think is so accepting and who you are, and that you've made it, and that you're valued and respected and looked up to, and all of those things. And on a dime, you feel like, wait, that shifts. And all of a sudden, the place that you were living in the most secure, safe space. I was speaking to a couple chevra who came over from their from South Africa many years ago, and they spoke about how when they came here, they felt like they've hit the golden Medina over here. And I won't get into the philosophy of the realization that like our end goal is never going to be Canada. I mean, eventually we'll all pack up, and we hope it's under our terms, not other terms, and make it back to where we all belong. But there was an appreciation as you stopped for that. And I think the reason why I wanted to mention that, especially when we're going into Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzmaut, I think there's also an appreciation that we now realize, which I don't think we really delved into. Let me explain. When we were on Pesach and we were going through the whole everything that happened in Mitzrayim, there's a principle of Kol Hamar B'Lesaper B'Yitzias Mitzrayim. Anyone who sits there and talks more about Yitzias Mitzrayim, Harei Zeh Meshubach, it's even greater. And the principle being that the more that you sort of, parse it down and look at all the facets, the more you realize, holy cow, I don't think I really appreciated what that event really meant. And if we take that to, let's say, Yom HaZikaron that's about to be commemorated, obviously we know it's about giving honor and respect to fallen soldiers. But the other day I was sitting down and saying, what does that mean? So at first I thought, well, wait, that means that there are people who are defending our country, right, and lost their lives. And then I'm like, wait, but I also know that means that there were wives and mothers and children and kids that were all part of that process of a father going out to fight and what that felt like for 100 days as we now experience. There's a whole different dynamic of what's happening over there. Then there's a very like silly, simple dynamic of wait, that means all their parnasa, and they like people put. I know businesses that closed. People who were investing in, who were running their businesses, were called up for. It sounds so minor in the grand context, but all of a sudden, everything that they were building, they were supposed to be moving to Chicago. They said to open up a business they've been working on. Everything fell apart, and they're starting from scratch again. Again, thank God they have their health and whatnot. But there's a facet of that. Then there's a facet of the understanding that wait, the security that they now feel on a day-to-day basis. So Yom HaZikaron up until now has been obviously we appreciate that. But because we've been so intimately involved in watching the news and we all know stories, we realize that Yom HaZikaron for North American Jews was a day where we commemorate. But the truth is, I think this year, it's a day where we start to get an insight and appreciate what it really means, that sacrifice. And same thing with Yom Ha'atzmaut. Up until now, it's like, wow, that's great. It's shaving cream and free in the streets. But we have an appreciation of, wait, what does it mean that Hashem blessed us with this country? And we all know that we say that the biggest difference between what happened 80 plus years ago and now is now that we've been given our homeland back again. And it's a whole different level of appreciation because I don't think any of us could appreciate what was happening around the world if Israel didn't exist. Right. And I think that that's something that for the first year, I at least have a much deeper appreciation of what that is. But the importance of Yoms, as we know we're coming up to Mother's Day as well, and all those other days, the importance of the Yom of the day isn't the day. It's about taking the space to really dig deep into what exactly, right, we're appreciating on each one of those moments, and then realizing that that's supposed to be something we carry with us to change, alter, or inspire or infuse our days with a greater appreciation of what that is. There's a beautiful idea that all the months, all the Jewish months have, something special, right? If you're an employer, you're always letting your, Jewish employees off for 1 day, 2 day, 5 days. Every month's got something. There's a reason why we're there. There's something very unique, although you don't get off work for it, about the month of Iyar that we just started. Yesterday was Rosh Chodesh. Today's the second day of the month of Iyar. And it's brought down that the one unique feature of Iyar, for those that are familiar with something called Sfiras HaOmer, counting the Omer, there's a daily count that starts the day after we start Pesach all the way up until Shavuos. And the sources bring down that the significance of Iyar is that there's a mitzvah every single day. Meaning it's not just an episodic big moment, right? Pesach was a big moment. The Yoms are the big moments. Hanukkah is there's big moments, but the big moments, if a person really appreciates them, they take it with them to realize that every single day it should impact what a person does. There should be growth based on that piece as well. And I think that that's sort of what our challenge is. How do we take all of this and in some way incorporate it into what we do, into who we are, how we react, what we think about on a day-to-day level? Because at the end of the day, we do know that these days they come and they go. And when they leave, I think the principle is that we're not supposed to, let the day us go through the day, but the day is supposed to go through us, and that we're not supposed to count the days, but we're supposed to make each day count. And I think that this opportunity that we have in this in between time gives us this moment to reflect on in a way that we've never reflected before. What exactly was the sacrifice that was made? What does that mean for each individual that either has come after Holocaust to rebuild the world, and what it meant for them to be able to go ahead and pull themselves together after we feel so many people I speak to, just how do you move on? What do? You feel helpless, right? Can't imagine what they went through and yet what we come from and what they were able to rebuild. And then as we go into Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzmaut, to really, in a way that we never did before, appreciate what that means in a way that we saw over the past 6, 7 months. What does it mean to give up one's life? What does it mean to go ahead and be willing to? Please God, they shouldn't have to. I have a nephew that I think it was just yesterday had his gius. He was called up to the army, and they send the videos of them all there and dancing, and they're young 18-year-old idealistic kids who feel that they can conquer the world, and they're going out there, and all of a sudden you start to realize, wait, they're going out there and it's a different world. And then you realize, wait, the parents just said goodbye to them. And then you realize the siblings are just whatever. And the way that they're saying goodbye to them now is a very different goodbye. And it's interesting, in our show, we're doing something for some of the graduates that are finishing high school and going off to campus. And in the past, going off to campus meant the parent was, oh, we're going to miss you. We'll set up. Here's your little, we'll send you your meats for your freezer so you have kosher meat up there wherever you are. And, here's whatever you have to do. This year, sending your kid off to campus, totally different energy, right? The discussions are like, it's all different. And I think that when everything is different, it gives us the opportunity to appreciate what it is that we maybe took for granted, and to also appreciate what it is that those are not taking for granted are really putting on the line. And ultimately, I think it's so beautiful that we culminate the days with Yom HaTzmaut, realize that we still live in the most blessed generation in Jewish history for thousands of years, and that we've been given gifts that we have at our disposal, and we should be zocha. We should merit that. The more, like with any parent, we say, the more the person appreciates what their parents do for them, the more the parent's willing to do, right? The more Kadosh Baruch Hu, God says, wow, you really appreciate what sacrifice means. You really appreciate the gifts that you have. The more hopefully we'll be given those gifts and won't have to sacrifice in the way that we do anymore. So may these days give us strength, and may most importantly the people that are going through in the most intimate of ways be given the strength they need. And these are days that we hope that change, just like the switch of a dime from Yom HaZikaron to Yom HaTzmaut, it changes literally with a 1 second, it's morning, the next second it's celebration. That exists on the macro with our calendar, but it will exist, please God, soon in our days in the macro, sorry, with our people and with our future and our history. So, Chevra, wishing you a good Shabbos, wishing everyone in Israel a chama, comfort. And there's a line, Umach Hashem Dima Mi'al Kol Panim. God should wipe away all tears, not just future tears, but past tears as well. And Hazarim Bedima, we sow the ground with our tears, but Barina Yitzhar, we will sit there and reap the benefits, please God, soon. So, Chevra, wishing you a good Shabbos. Great to see everyone, and we'll see you next week. And that.